Okay, I need to wrap up this traditional wife thing. I don't know. You know, you get on something and then there's comments and it makes you think of some other things. But this was kind of funny here. I I try to stay in touch and I see what's happening and try to anyway. And anyway, I see an advertisement on something, one of the channels I was looking at that had the women's conference, the LDS Women's Conference at BYU, and I think it's in May. And some of the keynote speakers. And so I'm just looking at the keynote speakers, and I have this traditional wife thing on my mind, right? Because it's made the news. There's a segment of society that wants to get back to that, And then I read the talk by President Benson, which, somebody asked where they could find it. And I had just gone to the church website. I literally tried to go back to it and couldn't find it. I think you can find it some other ways. One interesting one I found by Googling it was in pamphlet form. And you could actually read the pamphlet online. And that's the one I remember distributing as a home teacher back in the day, right? So the keynote speakers are basically the General Relief Society presidency and then Sherry Dew. And so I just thought, well, I got to see, what their background is, because other than Sherry Dew, I have no idea. Camilla N. Johnson, she's just President Johnson. So she's the General Relief Society presidency. She was an attorney. She got a law degree and she practiced law for 30 years. Sister Yee, Y-E-E, a counselor. She had her master's, got her master's, and she was in public administration for her profession. Another keynote speaker is Janet Dennis. And I can't remember if I think she's a counselor in the Relief Society. Anyway, she's a stay-at-home mom. And, or at least she was when her kids were growing up. And then an Irene Casso, C-A-S-O, she's also a keynote speaker, and she is a news reporter, does newscasts, and has one child, but reports news, I guess. And then the other keynote speaker is Sherry Dew. And I know she's off limits. I can't say anything there, but a professional, let's say, that makes a nice salary. So out of that group of keynote speakers, you have one stay-at-home mom. So you're probably not going to get a lot of insights at least from the keynote speakers at the women's conference. I know I'm going to get in trouble saying this, but you could you could actually call it, and I have in the past, the BYU Women's Lib Conference. But I know there's good things there, and, but you are who you are. I mean, I know on this channel, I say things because I'm a product of who I am, I mean, how I was raised, the experiences I've had in professional, I shouldn't say professional. I'm not a professional. In my business life, in my church life, family, kids, grandkids, all that stuff. So everything wraps up there. And then, then you have something to say, right? Well, from that list of keynote speakers, if I were a traditional wife or a traditional mom, housewife, I wouldn't expect to hear a lot of things that might be helpful to me from the keynote speakers. That's it. Now, just to add to that, so I was curious about the other presidencies, the young women presidencies and the primary presidency. And I don't really want to get into it of who is what, but let's just say out of the 6 of them, because 3 in each presidency, there's 2 that I could identify as perhaps stay-at-home moms. 2 of the 6. The others were software engineer or software something, a lab assistant and math teacher, and an office manager, and then one did financial services for years, 15 years of financial services. So if you take all 9 of them as young women leader, not young women, sorry, as general auxiliary, now we don't call it auxiliary anymore, whatever they are, those organizations, there's 9 in the presidency total, women. 3 of them I pretty much could identify as that they were stay-at-home moms when their kids were home. So that tells you something, I think. I think it's an indication that the leadership isn't really the old Ezra Taft Benson days and the previous prophets to that he had quoted in his talk. Doesn't seem to be part of God's plan for the ideal plan. And we always know the exceptions, and there are exceptions. I get that. I know that. So, but you still have to have an ideal. One thing I find is interesting. And I don't want to get, I'm not like criticizing, but just something I noticed. This was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. I was listening to Taylor and Tyler, Come Follow Me. I enjoyed them. And he said something about about marriage and traditional family and da-da-da. And then I could tell that he had cut it off and then edited in, and then he talked about his aunt that never married and da-da-da. And it just was so fake. It was so fake for me. And again, I'm not trying to be, critical, but it's an indication of how we are. We seem to always want to apologize for what life we're living. If you're white male, you almost have to, hide because you're, especially middle-aged, because you're in the worst category ever, and you have, this white shame and all this, and people are just, it's so stupid. It's just stupid. But then if you have a family that was traditional and life was pretty dang good, it's almost like, oh, I better not say anything. I might hurt somebody's feelings that didn't have that. That's just bullcrap. It's bullcrap. It was your experience, or it wasn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if you go by God's plan as spelled out in Scripture, as far as I understand it, it is a man and a woman having children. That's the plan. That's the most godlike plan out there. A husband, a wife, children, and then they grow up and duplicate it, hopefully, and the human experience goes on. That's the ideal, according to Scripture. And we've gone over a lot of those scriptures already. So to feel uncomfortable or feel like because you had that experience and you express it, to feel like, oh, now I've got to make an exception and think of something different so that I didn't offend anybody that didn't have that experience. It never used to be that way. And you know, look, over time and in situations, experiences I've had, just heavy duty, just stuff, right? You see a lot of things, and you see a lot of people, and most people don't get offended because they didn't have the experiences that you had or somebody else had. Most people don't. And because there are a few that do, that's on them. That's on them. I don't, there's tons of experiences I haven't had and people have had them. And I don't feel like, oh, how come you didn't talk about my experience? You know, it's just stupid. It's stupid. And we got to get away from that. And especially in the church, because the more we do that, the more fake and phony we sound. That's my opinion. It just doesn't feel right. It's like, you guys, we don't need to make everybody feel warm and fuzzy, because it doesn't work. That's a fallacy. We'll never achieve that, because that all comes from within. Nobody can make you anything. You can allow yourself to feel, hurt or this or that. But most people I find go, yeah, I didn't have that lot in life, so what? I made the best of what I had, and I have life experience that they don't have. The people I think of a lot, and I have a lot of, I don't know if compassion's the right word, but I listen to what they have to say. And that's people that grew up where a parent died when they were young. For some reason, those people intrigue me, because I can't imagine what that would be like. But just thinking what they went through for the first day, the first week, and the second day, and the third day, and the week, and then 2 weeks, and then a month, and then a year, and then years of that as a young person losing a parent. So I think of that. Or children that lost siblings when they were young. I have a really good friend. In fact, we saw each other. I won't blast his name out there, but saw each other at a funeral of somebody that we grew up with. And it was so good to see him. But within 2 or 3 weeks of each other, his sister died, and then his brother died. And they were young. His sister was 10 and his brother was 6, maybe. And I remember, they were just right next to us. And how the parents survived that. So I think of those people more than I think of, other situations. But that's just me. I think of them. But I didn't have that experience. I had like the most ideal, mom and dad, sisters, family. It was, if I screw up, it's all on me, which I have screwed up. But if I continue, or if I have issues, it's all on me. I can't point my finger at anything. But I find people, and I've mentioned this a lot of times, I found people on our mission, young missionaries that came from crappy homes that were just amazing. And so, it is what it is. And then you find people that have perfect, the ideal or the scriptural traditional family, and they struggle. So there's no guarantees, but that's the way God had planned it. A guy and a guy together can't produce a child. A woman and a woman together cannot produce a child. A man and a woman, and we're told that they're to be united in union through marriage. Marriage is ordained of God, And when that happens, and then children come, that is the most godlike plan. And if we're here to become like our Father in heaven and his Son Jesus Christ, then that's our best shot at it, as far as feeling and knowing and seeing, because you have the experience of creating, you have the experience of nurturing, raising, teaching, and then if you're a sibling, you have that unique experience of being, having brothers or sisters or both, having a family unit. It's just a unique thing. And you can only learn, you learn so much in all of that. So, okay, so I brought all that up. I don't know how I got into that. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to mention, I've talked about this once before, but for some reason it popped into another thing I was studying, and you know how that works. But we have an ether 12, which ether 12 and ether 13 are really amazing chapters. And this is Moroni kind of giving his not necessarily a summary, but it's just some of the best stuff. But in chapter 12, verse 11, actually I'll start in verse 10. For it was by faith that they of old were called after the holy order of God. Now, we'll get into this because this is very significant. Wherefore, by faith was the law of Moses given, but in the gift of his Son, not Moses' son, but God's Son, hath God prepared a more excellent way, and it is by faith that it hath been fulfilled. So I was in a meeting as a mission president, and we had all the mission presidents from Utah and wives, and I think we had 4 general authorities there. And the topic came up of the more excellent way. And we were all supposed to go around the table and talk about what we're doing in our missions that's the more excellent way. And I had studied this previously, this more excellent way. And it says right there, the more excellent way is the Son of God and his priesthood, his authority, everything. His atonement, Christ is the more excellent way, whereas the law of Moses was pointing towards that, right? And so we went through and we heard, it was kind of a brag fest. And it got to me, and I said, well, I said, I don't feel comfortable taking a scripture that has a specific meaning about Christ and trying to attach it to how we're, placing more copies of the Book of Mormon, or how we're doing this or doing that. I said, the more excellent way is Christ fulfilling the law and conquering death in victory and wiping away the tears off all faces. I said, that's the most and the more excellent way than what the law of Moses had. And that was the context of that. Well, it was like, I just put a big pin and popped it into a balloon and popped it. I had just, looks at me like, why do you bring up this stuff, and why are you talking this way? So I know I get under people's skin sometimes, and I know my mind goes differently, and I have a hard time playing the game. It's not that I intentionally want to go against everything. It's just how my mind works. So I know that this audience will probably be pretty small, because it'll be the group that can actually stand what I have to say. But a more excellent way. Now, there's a couple of other scriptures that we can go to in Hebrews, because it talks about this priesthood. And Hebrews is really it's got to be one of my most favorite books. I can't wait till we get to Hebrews. So Hebrews, if we go to chapter 7, this is really cool. There's a few verses here, so I'm going to read this. But so chapter 7, verse 1. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. This is really cool because when Sue and I were in Israel in the fall, we actually got to go. It's within the city of David, and we got to go where more than one archaeologists feel that they have discovered the temple of Melchizedek, or the shrine, the altar of Melchizedek in the city of David. It's so cool because he was the king of Salem, right? It says the king of Salem, which is Jerusalem. It was old Jerusalem. And so the city of David, which is so cool, and I can just see it in my mind on this side hill, where this active archaeological dig is going on, uncovering the city of David. Okay, verse 2. To whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness. And after that, also king of Salem, which is the king of peace. Salem. Shalom. It's so cool to find out the meanings of this. But so here you're seeing this laid out. Whoever wrote Hebrews, probably Paul, but I don't know. Do we know who wrote Hebrews? Yeah, it's my favorite book, and I have no idea. Anyway, he's talking about how great Abraham was, but Abraham paid his tithes to Melchizedek, and so who is this Melchizedek? And he is the king of righteousness. He's a type of Christ, or someone leading up. Now, down in verse 5, and verily they that are of the sons of Levi who receive the office of the priesthood have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law, that is, of their brethren, though they came out of the loins of Abraham. So it's talking about these two priesthoods, and the sons of Levi are attached to Abraham, whereas Melchizedek has this higher priesthood. Okay, now just to save some time, let's go over to verse 17. For he testifieth, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. For there is verily a disannulling of the commandment going before, for the weakness and unprofitableness thereof. Now listen to this, verse 19. For the law made nothing perfect, the law of Moses, which is exactly what we read in Ether 12. But the bringing in of a better hope did by which we draw nigh unto God. And then this is the priesthood or the authority of Melchizedek. So this is so beautiful, and it ties in so much to us as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I remember telling this whole group of evangelical Christians we were with in Israel, and I said, Melchizedek temple down there, because our Pastor Todd said, this is a new dig, a new discovery of Melchizedek's temple. And I just said, this is big for us Mormons, I said, because that's what they were used to. And I said, we have two priesthoods that we get ordained to. One is the Aaronic, or the priesthood of Aaron, or the Levitical priesthood, and one is Melchizedek. And it's the higher priesthood. It's the priesthood of the king, And they just kind of look at you like, well, I'm glad you're excited. Anyway, but you see the similarities. In Ether 12, you have a more excellent way, and here you have a better hope. Isn't that cool? Now, let's go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 12. And we get, and this is why I think this is Paul writing Hebrews, but if you go 1 Corinthians 12, let's go to 27. Now ye are the body of Christ, and members in particular. Maybe if I put my glasses on, I could, oh yeah. And God hath set some in the church, first apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, governments, diversities of tongues. Are all apostles? Question mark. Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Have all the gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? And then he says this interesting thing in verse 31. But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way. A more excellent way. So this is in Ether 12. So what is the more excellent way? So meaning that, prophets and apostles, teachers, working miracles, all that's great. And you can, covet those things earnestly if that's what you choose. But let me show you a more excellent way. And now I want to read, and it goes right into chapter 13. I wish these chapters were the same because when you break it up, you think it's a new thought. In my opinion, it is not, because it's a continuation. So chapter 13 is showing us the more excellent way. Now, I'm going to substitute something here. And so you really kind of need to follow along. I'll put the word in there the first time, but then I'm going to substitute it. Now listen to this. This is the more excellent way that Paul is talking about. Though I speak with the tongue of men and of angels, so there he's going back to these miracles that he just talked about. You're performing miracles, you're doing all this stuff, and have not charity, I become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. Now I'm going to substitute the word here. Though I speak with the tongue of men and of angels and have not Christ, I am become as sounding brass or tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy, being a prophet, and understand all mysteries, those are all some things that you could want to have, and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, and have not Christ or charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not Christ, it profiteth me nothing. Without Christ, you can do all the good works you want, and guess what? Without Christ and his atonement, he is the more excellent way. Charity is the pure love of Jesus Christ. It's his pure love. Okay, we learned that in Moroni. But now listen to this. This really nails it. Verse 4. I'll read it the way it's written first, and then I'll change it. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Now, let me read it with substituting the word Christ. Christ suffereth long and is kind. Christ envieth not. Christ vaunteth not himself, is not puffed up. Those are all attributes of Jesus Christ, and he is the more excellent way, or the more excellent hope, or however that was talked about. So that is, I don't know. I love that because it ties in to the priesthood. It ties into following the children of Israel. It ties in Abraham and Melchizedek. Melchizedek being the Prince of Peace, a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ, and that the tribe of Levi came through Abraham. Abraham pays tithes to Melchizedek, and the Levitical priesthood, all the temple things that were done in Israel, in the temple in Jerusalem, and as well as the traveling tabernacle, were all done by the Levitical priesthood. So those verses to me are the epitome of the restored gospel. That reading those is like going home for a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in my opinion. Okay, now, the last thing I wanted to talk about. I know I'm kind of all over the place today, but this is really good. Let's go to Daniel. We in Daniel chapter 5, Nebuchadnezzar in 4, he dies, and his son Belshazzar takes over as the king of Babylon. So Babylon would be modern day Iran. No, modern day Iraq. Modern day Iraq. Sorry about that. Persia, modern day Iran. Well, what's going to happen here, and Daniel gets to interpret the words and for Belshazzar, just like he did for Nebuchadnezzar. And the wise men, he calls them wise men. This is why, this phrase wise men is so interesting, coming from the East. When we think about the nativity, this is probably where they came from, and they were considered wise men, the wise men, Anyway, so this dream, this is what Daniel says to Belshazzar. This is verse 23. But hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, thy wives, and thy concubines have drunk wine in them. This is such a disgrace, and being very sacrilegious in the sense that they had all these items from the temple that they took in Jerusalem, and then they just started partying with it, with all the relics of the temple, Solomon's temple, and it's really sad that they did this, and so this is Daniel just telling him, you guys blew it. You don't do this. You don't do this kind of stuff. And thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold and brass, iron, wood, stone, which see not, nor hear not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thy ways hast thou not glorified. In other words, you've worshipped these items that aren't anything, and you forgot the true and only, the God of Israel. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. I don't know how to pronounce these words, but Mene, Tekel Epharsin. Upharsin. This is the interpretation of this. It might be mean God, that means God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and art found wanting. And Perez, the kingdom is divided and given to Medes and Persians. So this should sound familiar to some of you moviegoers, especially 10, 15 years ago. Thou art weighed in the balance and thou art found wanting. So what Daniel's telling Belshazzar is that it's over for you, and you have been weighed and measured, judged. You've been judged, and you're found wanting. You're out of balance. The imagery is so good, and Daniel is so awesome, and he just tells him the Persians are going to take you over, which they did. And then we have that beautiful story, Purim, that was just celebrated with Esther and the king of Persia, and you have the villain, and it's awesome. All that happened a little bit later as Persia took over and conquered Babylon. So that's going to happen to all of us. We're going to be weighed and measured. Now, the reason why I talk about this movie, do you remember A Knight's Tale with is it Heath Ledger, who passed away a few years ago? I'm not into Hollywood and acting, but he seemed like he was really good at what he did. And I apparently he had a drug issue, and I don't know exactly, but at the end of that movie, which I think is so good, there's so many great lessons in that movie of having some kind of heritage to get you into the game. Very interesting. He had a father that planted in him a dream to become something, and that he was something. That's just so powerful, and that was with him all the time. His father basically gave him up as a huge sacrifice to let him become somebody. That was cool. And then all the romantic stuff, whatever. But there's the villain. There's the guy that needs to be beat and put into place. And it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen, right? And the king comes in, and because of the respect he had for this fledgling knight, played by Heath Ledger, the king gives him a chance to fight against evil, and he beats him. And as that villain is laying there, the knight and the people that support and help him are surrounding him. And this is what they say. And it's very similar to what we just read. Thou art weighed in balance and art found wanting. Yeah. This is what they say. And each one of them says something different. But you have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have absolutely been found wanting. I love that. And then Heath Ledger says this, welcome to the new world. God save you if it is right that he should do so. Oh, this is just so cool because it encompasses everything. He ends in the name of God, which is a powerful thing for me in a movie. And he invokes the name of God to save him if it's right that he should be saved. And obviously the only way it would be right for him to be saved is if he just went, I'm so sorry I did what I did. I'm an evil guy and I repent and I want to be saved. But if he didn't, then no. And I also loved when he said, welcome to the new world. And I think this is where we're on the precipice of, we're on the edge of the new world. And it's when all of us po-folk, all of us people that have just been kind of slugging on and doing our thing, doing the best we can, helping our neighbor, going to church, paying tithes, getting food storage, serving in callings, raising families, dealing with illnesses and death and heartache and all the things that we go through. We're going to be vindicated. And it's going to be the new world. It's going to be the new Jerusalem. It's going to be something fantastic. And, you know, when we go to the temple, we get that. Where there's nothing. We're all basically on the same level, and we're just there and feeling it and learning and loving. And so that's how we get to have a taste of this. Now, and this is my opinion, we're not going to have a society like that until Christ comes. And I am convinced now, you can call me Mr. Flip-Flop if you want, but I am convinced that the rapture is actually going to be the wicked taken up and gone. And taken up might be the wrong way, but they're going to be taken from the earth. Let's say that. And they will be the tares. And we study the tares this week in Come Follow Me. And it's definitely about our time, the last of the last days. And the tares are going to be taken. Now, being caught up or raptured is a change in our bodies to become terrestrial. And in a sense, we are taken up. But earth is our home. Earth is our home. That's why we call it mom. We get to come home to mom, Mother Earth. Earth is our home. We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And we are going to be able to say, welcome to the new world. The banking systems, the corporate ladders, all that stuff is gone. You know, having a certain name or prestige or inheritance gone. Our King is Jesus Christ, and we will be children of Christ, entering into the city, the gates of the city, and it'll be wonderful. But until then, we have the temple, and that is the new Jerusalem for us now, and will be, in my opinion, until Christ comes. I don't see any other way. Evil has to be eliminated. The tares have to be burned. They have to be harvested, bundled up, and torched. And the wheat is preserved, and we're changed. We are changed. And so we just need to hang in there. And there will be a reckoning. There will be a reckoning. And we will be justified, ratified, sanctified, glorified through all the other fides that we need to become part of the kingdom of heaven on earth. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting this by your comments. That's how you support this. is this conversation we have within the conversations. Hearing the stories, the stories of the last couple of days of people in their lives and the things they've done and the experiences they've had. You know, sometimes all I do is, just do a heart, and please know that that's for reals. I really am grateful that you said that. Occasionally I'll put a comment in there, but I don't always take the time to do that. There's just things I don't want to make an excuse, but I just do what I can, right? But don't always have time. Emails, I know I get emails occasionally, and I'm so bad at getting back on those, but I'll work on emails. But you guys are amazing. Sue's still out of town. Can't wait till she gets back. It's actually our anniversary today. Happy anniversary, dear. Yeah, it's awesome. 44 years. So not too bad. 44 years. Oh, gosh. It's been awesome. Anyway, God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.